It was a crisp autumn morning when Leela Sharma realized her life had changed forever. She had grown up in a quiet town called Kathmandu, in a middle-class family that valued tradition and honesty. Her father was a retired school principal, and her mother ran a small handicraft business from home. Leela was 26 years old, independent and hard-working. She had inherited a small ancestral house in the city, a place full of memories, her childhood laughter, late-night study sessions, and her first love letters tucked inside a drawer. This house wasn't just bricks and walls, it was her sanctuary, her connection to family roots, her security for the future. One morning, Leela received a letter from a real estate agent. It looked official. The paper felt cold in her hands. Subject: Property Sale Confirmation, 12 Lalitpur Road, Kathmandu. Her fingers trembled as she read the lines. The property listed under your name has been sold on 30th September. The payment has been processed, and the new owners will take possession immediately. Leela froze. What? She read it again. No warning, no discussion, no consent. Her parents had sold her house without telling her. Her hands shook, her heart pounded. She immediately called them. "Mom, Dad, why didn't you tell me?" Her mother's voice trembled. "Leela, we thought it was better this way. We needed the money for the business, and we didn't want to worry you." Leela felt a storm rising inside her chest. "This is my property. You couldn't even ask me?" Her father's voice cracked. "We didn't mean to hurt you." Leela hung up. She couldn't speak, she couldn't breathe, she couldn't believe the people who were supposed to protect her had betrayed her in the coldest way possible. The world she had known, the safe place she had depended on, was gone. For 3 days, Leela cried. She wandered through her tiny rented apartment, staring blankly at the walls. Sleep eluded her, meals were forgotten. Every thought brought rage. But somewhere inside, beneath the heartbreak, a burning fire started to grow. Her mind, sharp as ever, began thinking. Revenge, justice, respect. The house might be gone, the papers might be signed, the money in their bank account might belong to her parents now, but she still had her skills, intelligence, and strategy. Leela worked in a small digital marketing firm. She had grown her reputation quietly over the years: creative campaigns, sharp analytics, strong client relations. She had money saved, she had connections, and now she had motivation. The first step was information. Leela researched the sale thoroughly. She discovered the buyer was a newly registered company with no clear history. The real estate agent had handled the transaction under unusual circumstances. Certain documents had minor errors, signatures missing or forged. Her mind raced. This wasn't just about money. This was about disrespect, about betrayal, about power. Leela began reaching out to lawyers discreetly. She wanted advice. She wanted loopholes. She wanted leverage. At the same time, she didn't reveal her anger. At work, she smiled. At home, she nodded politely at her parents. But inside, she was planning a storm. Then came the spark. She remembered an old mentor, Mrs. Bhattarai, who had taught her the basics of property law and business investment. Leela called her. "Mrs. Bhattarai, I need your help. Something unfair happened. I want to correct it permanently." The mentor agreed to meet. Over coffee in a quiet cafe, Leela outlined the situation. Her mentor leaned back and smiled faintly. "Leela, you're smart. This isn't just about reclaiming what's yours. It's about making sure the people who betrayed you understand the weight of what they did. But you need a plan, patience, strategy, and precision." Leela nodded. Every word fueled her fire. She wasn't going to scream. She wasn't going to cry in public. She wasn't going to beg. She was going to strike where it hurts most, their pride and their trust. For the next few weeks, Leela quietly collected evidence, copies of documents, emails with the agent, bank transaction trails. She analyzed every angle, every weakness. Then she began building her tools, contacted investors interested in property projects in the same area, networked with lawyers specializing in property fraud, prepared a media angle, the story of betrayal, injustice, and power. By the end of the month, Leela had a plan of action. It wasn't impulsive, it wasn't emotional, it was calculated. The house might have been sold, the betrayal might have felt permanent, but the revenge she was about to execute would be brutal and unforgettable.
Leela Sharma didn't rush. She understood something very important. Revenge is most powerful when it is silent first. Every morning, she woke up early and reviewed her notes, documents, contracts, email records, bank transaction copies. Everything was organized in a digital folder she named simply Project Justice. She continued acting normal around her parents. She visited them on weekends. She smiled. She drank tea with her mother. She listened to her father talk about the smart business decision they had made by selling the house. Inside, her blood boiled, but on the outside, she was calm, because calm people win wars. Her first move was legal, not emotional. Through Mrs. Bhattarai's contacts, Leela met a senior property lawyer named Rajiv Khadka. He reviewed the sale documents carefully. After 2 hours of silent reading, he looked up. "This deal is weak," he said. "There are missing consent signatures. Your authorization was never properly recorded. That gives us leverage." Leela felt her heartbeat faster. "But I don't want to cancel the sale immediately." Rajiv raised his eyebrows. "Why not?" Leela smiled slightly. "I want to use it." Her next move was financial. She discovered that the buyer company, Evergreen Holdings, was heavily funded by loans. They had bought her house as part of a larger property investment project. Their cash flow was tight. They were depending on fast resale profits. That made them vulnerable. Leela contacted an investment consultant friend named Arav Mehta, who specialized in silent acquisitions. Together, they created a plan. Leela would invest in Evergreen Holdings indirectly. Small shares first, then larger ones, quietly, without revealing her identity. Within 3 weeks, she owned a significant portion of Evergreen through investment partners. But she didn't stop there. She contacted the real estate agent who handled the original deal. At first, he avoided her calls. Then she visited his office. She placed printed documents on his desk. "You sold my property without legal consent," she said calmly. "That's fraud." The man turned pale. "I was just following instructions from your parents," he stammered. Leela leaned forward. "You have 2 options. Help me or face legal consequences." Fear is a powerful motivator. The agent agreed to cooperate. He gave her insider details about Evergreen Holdings, internal problems, financial instability, upcoming deals. Leela was now inside the system. Meanwhile, her parents were enjoying the money. They upgraded their lifestyle, new furniture, better car, expensive appliances. They believed the problem was over. They believed Leela had accepted it. They were wrong. 2 months later, Evergreen Holdings announced a new luxury housing project, the biggest in their company's history. Leela smiled when she saw the news. This was the stage she needed. She contacted major investors and quietly began questioning Evergreen's financial stability. She leaked controlled information, not lies, but carefully selected truths. Concerns spread, stock prices dipped, the board panicked. At the same time, Leela used her voting power as a silent shareholder to influence decisions. She pushed for internal audits, delayed project approvals, created pressure. Evergreen Holdings started bleeding slowly. And then, Leela made her biggest move. She revealed her legal leverage. Through Rajiv, she filed a legal notice claiming unauthorized sale and ownership dispute. Media picked it up. Headlines appeared. Young woman claims property sold without consent. Family property dispute exposes real estate irregularities. Evergreen Holdings' reputation suffered. Investors pulled back. Banks tightened loans. The company's value dropped rapidly. And that was exactly what Leela wanted. She didn't want the house back yet. She wanted control. Behind closed doors, she negotiated with struggling board members, offered capital injection, promised damage control, but with one condition: majority ownership transfer. They agreed. They had no choice. Leela Sharma became the controlling shareholder of Evergreen Holdings, the very company that bought her house. The irony was beautiful. The people who took her property were now working under her authority. But the final step was personal. She invited her parents to a business meeting. They didn't understand. They thought she wanted to discuss investments. When they arrived at Evergreen's office building, they were confused. "Why are we here?" her mother asked. Leela smiled calmly. "You'll understand soon." They entered the boardroom. Executives stood up respectfully. "Good afternoon, Chairwoman Sharma," said one. Her parents froze. Chairwoman? Leela sat at the head of the table. She looked directly at them. "The house you sold without telling me," she said softly, "belongs to my company now." Silence filled the room. Her father's face turned pale. Her mother's hands trembled. This is a joke," her father whispered. Leela's eyes were cold. "No, this is the consequence of betrayal." They finally understood, but Leela wasn't finished yet, not even close, because the most brutal part of her revenge was still coming.
Leela Sharma had waited. Patience was her weapon. Strategy was her armor. And now it was time for the final strike. Her parents thought they had seen the worst. They didn't realize the full scope. The boardroom of Evergreen Holdings was tense. Investors, lawyers, and executives were present. Leela sat at the head of the table, calm, composed, eyes sharp as knives. Her parents were brought in under the guise of a casual business review meeting. They didn't know they were walking into their own reckoning. "Chairwoman Sharma," the senior executive began, "we've reviewed the sale of 12 Lilitpur Road. After thorough investigation, it appears the transaction violated multiple regulations. Leela, your legal claim is fully validated." Her mother's jaw dropped. Her father's hands shook. Leela stood slowly, the room silent with anticipation. "You sold my property without my consent. Not only that, you assumed I wouldn't fight. You underestimated me. That was your first mistake." She paused. Her eyes swept the room. "You thought I was powerless. You thought I'd cry and accept it. But I didn't. I planned, I acted, and now I am in control." With a wave of her hand, she presented new directives. All profits from Evergreen Holdings' current projects would now include allocations for her strategic control.
Her parents, as minor shareholders, would report to her in all company matters. The property they sold was now under her direct management, and they had no operational authority. Her mother tried to speak. "Lila, we only wanted to help." Lila shook her head. "Helping does not mean taking. You betrayed me, and now you will see the consequences of that betrayal." Her father's face reddened with shame. We didn't think." "You didn't think?" Lila said, her voice ice cold. "Exactly. That's why you failed." Then Lila executed her final move, the most public and humiliating part. She invited all investors and media contacts to the boardroom under the pretense of a strategic announcement. Cameras were present. Flashbulbs clicked as Lila addressed the crowd. This story isn't just about business. It's about respect, honesty, and justice. A property was sold without consent, but through strategy, legal action, and perseverance, we've corrected the wrong. Betrayal has consequences. Her parents, now fully exposed in front of the media and executives, felt the sting of shame. The story went viral. Newspapers and online portals carried headlines, "Betrayed daughter takes control of company that sold her house. From victim to chairwoman, Lila Sharma's unstoppable comeback." Within weeks, Lila had leveraged the property, expanded Evergreen Holdings, and transformed it into a high-profile real estate empire. Her parents, humbled and awed, had no choice but to respect her authority. They understood, painfully, that Lila's brilliance and resolute were unmatched. Lila didn't stop there. She set up scholarships for young women in business, invested in legal aid for property rights, and became a symbol of strength, intelligence, and justice. And one evening, looking out over the city skyline from her office, she whispered, "They thought selling my house would destroy me. It created me. And now they work under the woman they betrayed." The betrayal had ended, the revenge had been executed, and Lila Sharma had emerged stronger, unstoppable, and fully victorious. The girl whose sanctuary was stolen became the queen of her own empire, proving that patience, strategy, and courage could turn any injustice into power.